Freedom Fighter Radio coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. Welcome to the morning broadcast of Freedom Fighter Radio, coast to coast, live from undisclosed location in Ontario, Canada, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Well, somewhere in the midtown. But it's always a pleasure to come on live here today and every single morning that we can do this. It's a blessing to be able to just have a connection, a communication with all of our patriots, our freedom brothers and sisters in the fight, brothers and sisters in the faith. I have to take that going live banner there as I talk. Today, it's going to be very short live cast. There are many pre-recorded podcasts that I already am queued up to finish the editing and post up here for for your consumption. And for some reason, I couldn't find the banner. We are on Facebook, YouTube today. Actually, our Freedom Fighter Radio America YouTube channel. But we are going to cut out from Facebook after the intro, and well, we'll give it about 5 minutes, and then we are going to add X. X has been treating us okay. I know that it's temporary. I don't think the X will be permanently free speech platform. We are still shadow banned, but not as heavy as Facebook. But most of our listeners and followers to the podcast has been earned through Facebook throughout the years, and so this is take this as a pre-show notification to all of our Facebook listeners. But 5 minutes into this show, we are going to leave Facebook and add X. I only have three channels that I can do at a time now. So we're on Rumble as usual. We are on YouTube, which is well, because today's topic is probably acceptable. But YouTube does just deleted our Dr. William Bay episode. So YouTube definitely and Facebook are both censorship platform. So maybe we'll not stay on YouTube for the entire. But this is a short episode, so we'll see. But definitely we're leaving Facebook and then we're going to X. But as usual, we are on Rumble, and today YouTube Freedom Fighter Radio America, because it is an American, albeit let's say primarily American, but all across the Western world, um, relevance of today's topic. And let me play a little bit of snippet of what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk about just two small snippets in the recent podcast with PBD and a certain leader of a white nationalist called Patriot First or America First, as they call them. But PBD is arguing that they should not be called America First because they are white nationalists. They feel like America's that definition of the nation of America should primarily be white, and their group called America First recruits only white men. And so the name of the guy is Russo. I can't remember his first name, but this young gentleman, I think, is in his early 20s, mid 20s. He started when he was 17, and I think his group and his movement is a reaction to a globalist blatant discrimination against whites, a racial discrimination against whites. And my our loyal listeners here on the Freedom Fighter Radio know where I stand. I stand against racism against whites, and I believe that whites should the members of our society, American, Canadian, Western societies that are of the white race or Caucasian race, I think they should have a voice, um, and not tiptoe about their being white, and they need to have they need to be able to defend themselves from all the racial discrimination against especially white men. So I stand with white men. I defend white men to be equally treated as equal human beings and as equal with equal human rights, and not be discriminated based on histories of slavery. But this white nationalist, sort of like white supremacists, and he doesn't claim to be a white supremacist, but this this movement of saying that the definition of the nation of America or American nation is defined as white only is, in my opinion, is fueling exactly the left's ideology or propaganda machine. It is fueling the racist movement against white people. This is not helping. It is actually fueling and helping the racist against whites. It is because I think this is a typical Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution. The problem is the globalists have created this anti-white, anti, you know, the white privilege idea, the anti-white dominant. They say that because white people are dominant in the stock market or in the corporate world, they're vilifying and demonizing whites as the enemy because they're successful. Many of them are successful, so they're calling them privileged. I do not stand for that. That is a gaslighting, Edward Bernays type propaganda to undermine the core values of America, of Canada, and the core values of Western societies, which is very much ingrained with the European culture, the Caucasian culture, who were the early settlers of our countries, Canada, United States, and many settlers also. But these are European, the white European race, the white brothers and sisters in the fight should not be tiptoeing about or be apologizing that they are white, or not be ashamed. But this is the psyop that the globalists are creating against whites, and white nationalists and movements exclusively for white. And they're saying that when they become the government, they're going to deport not only the illegal immigrants that has crossed the southern border, but they will deport anybody who is not of European descent, or that is going to the extreme. But I will tell you, there are some. Uh, Today's episode is not going to be in depth. I'm just going to quickly react on some of the rhetorics or the statements that Mr. Russo is saying here. But I will do a pre-recorded, in-depth response to some of what is being said in this podcast. But believe me or not, you better believe me. There are some of the things that I agree. Actually, there are some points that I agree that Mr. Russo were making on this particular snippet that I will be playing for you. Mr. Russo is the founder of, and this is him sitting right across PBD, or Patrick Bet David. As many of you know, PBD is from Iranian descent, but he's an American, not only an American citizen, but helped build America with his success in business. There's a lot of references to Indians and Filipinos actually on this episode as well. That he believed, Mr. Russo, the young man across PBD there, he believes that Indians and Filipinos, especially, those are the top two in a graph that they are going to talk about here today. Those are the top two high earners among the middle class in some of the graphs that they are going to talk about, statistics that they're going to talk about. This is the United States, and he believed that there's no need for Indians or Filipinos to stay. And as much as I believe that racism against whites should not be tolerated, white supremacies or white nationalists on the extreme saying that they will be deporting anybody who is not of white race. Remember, many Filipinos have settled in America as early as the 1930s, and there are about 4 million Filipinos in the United States, and many of them have contributed in building America. Here in Canada, we have there's about 1 million Filipinos in Canada, and it is actively helping building Canada. And if the definition of what Canada is and what America is only based on what the sacrifices of the founding fathers, but not any other recent generation, who has come and helped build this country because they're not white, then this is the other extreme of this argument that is fueling the globalist replacement migration agenda. We should not be helping the globalists move forward their replacement migration, because we don't agree with illegal immigration and migration from countries that does not population that do not share our core values of Christian core values, family values, education, business, capitalism. Those who hate America and those who hate Canada should not be the majority of migrants that we are welcoming into our society, because that is just going to drive the collapse of our society. And that's by design that the globalist is triggering right now, is to maybe we are going to be deleted again on YouTube for saying the phrase replacement migration. But we are going to leave Facebook after this snippet, and there's two snippets. This is the first one that I'm going to play right now, and then the next one after the intro.
I totally get that.
And I
totally
understand you say I should say white first.
No, it's not. You should say. You can say whatever you want to say, and nobody can. This
You're
is America.
suggesting.
I'm a freedom of speech. But I think based on the
Yes.
way you're presenting your ideas, I don't think you're America first. I think you're white
am.
first, is what you are. Because you're not even Christian.
Go ahead.
So it's not the denomination where, I would have said if you're America first, I think Trump is America first.
Yes.
I think Musk is America first.
Okay.
I think Rogan is America
I have
first.
nothing against these people.
No, what I'm saying to you is I think a lot of these guys are America first. I think, me being from Iran, I think I'm America first. I'm a supportive of this. But I think there's a difference between what America first means versus yours, which is more specific to skin color and origin, where they come from.
Did you know that Charles Lindbergh, who originally coined the term America First with the America First Committee, had beliefs in race and naturalization much more similar to mine than any of the people you just listed?
He may have, but that doesn't mean that's if you ask the average
talking
person.
about the origins of a phrase.
But there's a difference. So you're saying Trump has that position?
I am saying Trump has his own unique positions, not all of which I agree with.
Of course, that's kind of like saying the same book written, Vault, is written by 20 different people. That doesn't mean that if I write the book Vault, is the same as the first guy that wrote the book Vault. No, that's not what that means.
And when
I think Trump, Trump is thinking about choosing Tim Scott as a VP. You probably would lose your mind if Tim Scott is the VP.
I don't know or have any large opinion on Tim Scott.
But he's black, though. That's not America first.
I didn't know he was black until you just told me.
Yeah, Tim Scott is black. So
very good for him.
Yeah, but it's not about good for him or not. That would be against Patriot Front, that you and your community wouldn't be okay with that.
When you were speaking with Vivek, you talked about how Ann Coulter believed that Vivek would not get her vote for president.
Sure.
Because he's the children of immigrants and he is very culturally distinct.
Yeah. Sure.
I think that is an opinion held by a very large
I
percentage
don't disagree.
of the conservative.
Yeah, I don't
voter base.
disagree.
Enough of a percentage to make a difference politically, and
Enough or not enough?
enough.
Okay, good. That's
Enough,
an opinion.
Enough that I think it needs to be weighted. And when you're talking about when I say America,
Yeah.
I love the history of America. I love the culture of America, and I will
Listen, you
always.
don't really like the freedom of religion because that kind of screwed it up a little bit.
I do not. What do you believe I endorse that's against it?
Because if they would have said only Christianity,
I
okay,
don't agree with that.
but what I'm saying to you is the moment you say freedom of religion,
Yes.
you attract whites, blacks, Middle Easterns, Asian, Japanese, Muslim, anything and everything to come here
when
because
they wrote that, and then
Yeah.
for hundreds of years afterwards,
then they screwed up in your eyes.
immigration was restricted.
Then they screwed up in
The
your
people
eyes.
who wrote that
Yeah,
also
made a
wrote the
mistake.
naturalization laws. Yes.
Okay, so they made a mistake. So that's what
Well,
you're
not
saying.
they made a mistake, but people hundreds of years later made a mistake.
Well, not necessarily. If they say freedom of religion, then maybe they weren't paranoid enough to think that freedom of religion could open it up to other religions from different sects and communities to come to America.
When they passed the Immigration Act of 1965, I believe Lyndon B. Johnson said it would not significantly transform the demographics of the United States.
Yeah.
We know that that's false.
Okay.
And when they wrote the Constitution, when they include the First Amendment in there, they're
Mhm.
primarily talking about preventing religious disputes among a people which was largely homogeneous and of European descent. You can look into the works of Washington, Hamilton, Jefferson, and they all believe this.
I understand that. I understand where you're at.
Okay.
I understand your position. I think the audience gets to decide to say, okay, this guy is not necessarily America first. He's maybe white first. Or some people are going to say, no, I think he is this. They're going to make that decision for themselves. Candace Owens, you've said a few things about
I
Candace
mentioned
Owens.
her, yes.
Would you be comfortable with her becoming the president of the United? Would you vote for her if she ran?
I don't think she has opinions analogous to mine, and I don't think the president of the United States should be of her cultural background.
So the president of the United States should be of the cultural background.
Well, he should be American, yes,
She is.
by
she
some
would-
people's
So
definition.
that goes to skin.
Well, it goes to a cultural experience.
Give me a black American in your eyes.
I don't think there are any.
That's the point. So that's skin. That's where you're going.
Race
So-
is not skin deep.
but I understand that. But to me,
Race is an experience of which has all sorts of ramifications
Right.
sociologically,
Right.
demographically, economically, culturally, religiously, even linguistically.
well, I'm telling you, what today did is everyone now knows who you are.
I'm
Okay.
glad.
Yeah, no, everyone now knows who you are and what your position is.
Yes.
This is good for you. Now they know. And by the way, some people are going to be like, I like this guy. And I think believe it or not, I think there's a community of people like you that are out there. The same way when you said, I think there's enough of people like Ann Coulter in America.
Sure.
I
Make
think
a
there is. But I think some people also say they're also holding America back.
Nationalism is going to be a part of the political landscape, no
Yeah.
matter what anybody does, because I believe it's rooted in the innate feelings of human beings.
What do you think about Obama, by the way? When Obama became president, were you doing backflips celebrating that we have a black president?
I was not in favor of him. I was very young. I was in
Right.
middle school or perhaps
Right.
elementary school.
He's not one of the guys that you're in favor of. That would drive you insane.
I don't think Obama did a very good job as president.
So then who at that young age made you believe that? Did your parents play a role? Did they say anything about blacks
My parents did not influence me largely politically. I think my parents did a good job of raising me,
But-
but I
but-
will not place my political beliefs on
I
them.
get that, but for that to be injected at a young age, someone influenced that. And that's all I'm saying. For somebody to have these deep rooted beliefs like this, and I understand when you get to a point where you don't want to get your parents involved or anything else,
Sure.
somebody doesn't just wake up one day and say, yeah, he's,
Well,
not
it was a
com-
process that took
Right.
years. Because when in
How old are you right now? You're October
20.
20th, 98, you said? What year were you born?
October 20th, 1998.
Okay, so
So when I was, if I could help you out with
right, to 2004, he talks at the DNC.
I
To
was not paying
2008, I know you weren't, but in 08, he becomes president.
All right,
You're
folks.
10 years
That
old.
is
You're 21
Mr.
years
Russo right there. He is the founder of America First, or it's a white nationalist organization that recruits only white, exclusively white. Like I said, there are throughout I'm taking 10, 15, 20 minutes segment of a almost 2 hour conversation. I would encourage everybody to check out this episode with PVD and Mr. Russo. There are so many things that you will probably be repulsed in this conversation, but it is an important conversation to have. And, honestly, there are some things that this young man was saying that I agree with. And there are some of the things that PBD I'm disagreeing with. But just like anybody that I agree with a lot, there are some things that I do not always agree 100% with them. But definitely there are so many things that I also disagree with what this young man is saying, and definitely agreeing with what PBD was saying in this episode. And so, let's have this conversation. We are going to cut away from Facebook now, and let's see if we will stay on YouTube for a little while. But this is essentially an announcement to all of our Facebook listeners that there is an entire episode on Rumble. And yeah, we'll leave YouTube as well and just go to Twitter and Odyssey. And this is Freedom Fighter Radio on a Monday morning, short episode just to kind of give a quick reaction on what we, you know what, today's episode should be an invitation to a more in-depth discussion about this topic on another episode. But today we are going to kind of skim through and just touch on a little bit, just to tell everybody that there's an episode upcoming. I didn't realize my volume is maxed out here, and I'm sorry about that if it's blasting in your ear. There's going to be an episode about this that we are going to go in depth, but for today, it's going to be a skim through. This is Freedom Fighter Radio. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. Let's get the shows on the road.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa!
Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Welcome back, folks. I hope we were not muted the whole time. We'll see how we and we just said goodbye to Facebook and welcome to all of our ex or formerly known as Twitter listeners. Believe it or not, today we are on YouTube as well. Because I don't know how much. I'm not sure if, since this has already been discussed in a big channel, which is the PBD podcast. We assume that it is safe for us to discuss this without being deleted on YouTube? Because last week our episode with Dr. William Bay was totally deleted, albeit even though many of what Dr. William Bay has already been discussed many times in bigger channels such as Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and even PBD. They talk about the pandemic out in the open, and they don't get taken down. So there's definitely a shift in the what's allowable, and PBD was saying in some previous episodes that if Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter, which is now called X, YouTube would be more stricter with their censorship. But did they actually loosen up their censorship? Maybe they're a little bit more giving more leeway on bigger channels because it'll be more obvious when there's more audience how they suppress information. But for smaller channels like yours truly, like many local podcasters like yours truly, they don't care to just delete us or erase us from history because We don't pose a threat if if they just blatantly violate our freedom of speech. You don't care. But anyways, just before the intro, we played a little bit of for all of our ex listeners. We played a little bit of the episode with PBD and the founder of a white nationalist group called America First, which PBD is making a good point. Instead of calling your organization America First, why don't you call your organization White People First? Because they do not agree that there should be any non-whites considered citizens of America, and America they define the nation of America as white only. So there are some of the things I agree with what Mr. Russo was saying, and for our ex listeners, or it sounds wrong. Ex listeners sounds like former listeners, right? But the X.com listeners is what I mean. For X.com listeners, this is I'm just welcoming you now, but we already been kind of preambling this episode for about maybe 15 minutes. I played a little bit of these episode from PBD podcast, and this is Mr. Russo, the founder of quote unquote America First, a white nationalist organization, and he defines America as white only, or the founding the nation of America. Now, I'm gonna do my thorough take, my thorough analysis of why young men like this guy. I think he is well-meaning, but he is very much. I think he's well-meaning for the best interest of America. However, he is misinformed or miseducated, I guess, or misunderstanding of what it is to be an American. He believes that to be American is only to be an American. You can only define American as white. And at some point of this conversation with PBD, he was saying he believes in nation states, but I don't think he believes in nation state. Actually, I think he believes in tribal nations, because if he defines American nation as ethnically white only, then I think he believes in tribalism, which he badmouthed in one moment of his dissertation here. In one breath, he was saying, he doesn't believe in tribalism, or he condemns tribalism, but then he thinks that nation states are nations that are homogeneously one race or one ethnicity. That is, in my opinion, I think anthropologically that is defined as a tribal nation. I actually am in favor of tribal nations in today's 2024 era. That is impractical to try and achieve, in my opinion. So we have to work with what we have, and what we have are constitutional based nation states that are fabricated by the difference between Israelis and Israelites. I explained this in the past. In my opinion, the Israelis are the citizens of the nation state of Israel, and it doesn't represent the biblical Israelites. And these are my opinion, and some Christians would disagree with me. But all the atrocities that many anti-Semitic right now in our Western societies, many anti-Semitic are again responding to many of the atrocities of the nation state of Israel, the control of Hollywood, the control of banking in America, uh, their creation, the creation of sanctuary states in Israel for pedophiles, and many of the crimes that are perpetrated by the nation state of Israel, and even the genocide of many of the Arabs in the Gaza Strip. These are things we condemn. But we stand with the Israelites. The biblical Israelites is different from the nation state of Israel. So there's a difference between nation states and tribal nations. And I think this young man, Mr. Russo, is talking about tribal nations, but that is impractical to try and achieve in today's society. And also, it's irrelevant because America, the way it is today, was built not only by the European immigrants who started America, but also many of the migrants who came to America. In the sugar cane industry that built America, helped build America, where Japanese and Koreans and Filipinos were imported to Hawaii, and the sugar cane industry is one of those early oil type industries that really fueled economic growth of America. They helped build America. Many Italians and Portuguese who helped build the railroad system all across the United States, right? They are immigrants, but they might not be the original British founding first wave of migrants to the United States who created America, but they are as American as those founding fathers. And the blacks who were imported as slaves and then became emancipated and became free men and became Americans, they are as Americans as the whites, the white Europeans who first came. Again, the first wave of migrants of white Europeans that started America, yes, many of them are fleeing the tyranny of Great Britain, but at the same time, while they are fleeing the tyranny of Great Britain, they are conquering another geographic piece of land that there were settlers. The native Indians were in both the United States and Canada, and many of them lost their lives because of the arrival of Europeans who conquered this land. So as much as many of the early European whites have started America and Canada as well, they were also occupiers. So there are many sins in the past, and there are many, if we the same breath as many blacks are saying they require reparation for slavery, even though many who are calling for the reparations of blacks in America never experienced slavery. They live privileged lives, and many who are advocating for that are white women, single white women of the older age. Has nothing, there. If you bring that, if they are bringing that back, which are not relevant to today's society, in the same breath, this is what white nationalists are doing, saying, originally the founding fathers are all white. There are many decades and many centuries have came and gone, and America was built by many people. Many immigrants helped build America. Are we going to end Canada? There are many immigrants who built Canada. So these are the talking points of the left. But they're going on the other extreme. The other extreme, the left, are going globalist, erasing core values and core cultural heritage of Western societies. This is what the globalist wants. But the response of white nationalists going on the other extreme of saying, we are the exclusive heir. We have the birthright for America and Western societies. That is on the other extreme, and that is fuel for the globalists to keep pushing their replacement migration and erasing core values and core culture of Western society. So let's play the rest of the snippets I want to play for you, and then, like I said, this is just a skim through. We are going to have another episode sometime at the end of this week, if not early next week, a thorough conversation about this. Today is just touching on it just a little bit, but let me play the next part of what I want us to have a discussion on.
A lot of
There's
people
people
will
that
care.
there's a guy that goes viral all the time, and he wants blacks to marry blacks. I don't have a problem with that. I got a manek yesterday from somebody whose parents are Armenian, and she's dating a black guy, and her parents want her to marry an Armenian guy. And I can understand that. I don't have a problem with that. But going back to it,
Yes.
you would be more white first, not America first.
Well,
There's a big difference.
Americans are one of
Yeah.
the sovereign nations of the European race. Just like somebody who believes that Iranians should only marry Iranians. Would you say
What-
that he is
what
Arab
big-
first?
What big name today in America agrees with you?
I would say that there are people who have individual opinions. If I'm going to point to somebody who believes everything I believe,
No,
I'm
no,
not
just
very
the specific thing about to say, I'm not comfortable with a Candace Owens being a president. I'm not okay with a Tim Scott being a vice president. I'm not
good.
okay.
You put them on the ballot and you'll find out how
It's
many.
not
people
about
believe
finding,
that.
oh, are you kidding me? Like we learned how many people did that when Obama won in
understand what you're
08.
saying.
Yeah. But what I'm saying to you is, I don't disagree that there isn't a sect with you,
Yes.
but I think your community is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not bigger. I think your community,
Political landscape is opening up.
you think so?
There's
Okay.
a lot of people. You know, when you talk
Yeah.
to Tucker Carlson, you asked him what America was.
Mhm.
And he said, America is a people, it's a place and experience.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying he agrees with me on everything,
Mhm.
but he also said that if you take all the people in America and you replace them with somebody else, it is no longer America.
Mhm.
I think that is a very common opinion. I think that is a very deeply felt opinion among a lot of people.
I'm actually with a lot of what he's saying there. I actually agree with it.
Mhm.
I'm not. When I came to America, I feel I had to earn the right to come to this great country.
Sure.
It gave me incredible benefits. I owe to America. I don't think America owes me anything.
Okay.
Nothing. I came here and I had 195 other options. Why did we choose America? Then, we could have gone to Africa. We could have gone to Russia. We could have gone to, at the time, Yugoslavia. We could have gone to, why did we come here? We owe America. This is why I served in the military. But I think
Absolutely.
the difference between you and Tucker, you've quoted a lot of people.
Yes.
You've quoted Tucker. You've
Yep.
quoted Ann Coulter.
Sure.
You've quoted Candace Owens. Ann Coulter dated Dinesh D'Souza. Okay.
Sure. That's her decision.
Candace Owens, I think she's black.
I'm
okay.
pretty where she is.
And Tucker Carlson gets along with practically anybody. And it's not
I
something.
would like to think I'm getting along with you.
I don't think it's about along the differences. Like, I don't think a Tucker would want somebody to become a president based on their skin color and being white first. I think Tucker would want somebody to become president.
Race is not purely skin color. Race is a broader aspect of the human experience.
I get that, but I mean, listen, Candace Owens is as American as apple pie, and Candace Owens is black.
She
And
is black.
You would be uncomfortable with her being a president. I ask you if you would ever marry somebody. No. Okay, cool. There's the fact that you're uncomfortable to say white first. You shouldn't be. You should be comfortable with it.
America is a nation which is a part of
Yeah.
what you see as the white race.
Yeah.
And I want to
I don't mind.
people
I
in
married
this-
a white girl from here. I think we did the ancestry, and I think she's British. So I married a white girl that you would support of. Where she's from. But to me,
I don't support somebody automatically because
Yeah.
they are a member of my nation. I support people because of matters of their character and matters of their deeds.
not what it sounds like, though. It's not what it sounds.
It absolutely is.
It's not what it sounds like.
I think
Yeah.
we should be able to have a country, if the immigration policy that
Yeah.
you're talking about,
Uh-huh.
where it's largely restricted to merit, you would believe it should be a meritocracy.
Yeah.
And people who have something to bring to the country
Sure.
should be let in.
Right.
If that was in practice
Mhm.
for the last 100 years, do you
Mhm.
think the country would be whiter or less white?
100 years ago, going back to 1924.
Sure.
If that would have been practice, would it be whiter? I don't know.
So we're only
Uh,
letting in people
right.
who could do something that you did.
Yeah. I probably, if you allowed it based on what they did, I don't know, because the educational system in Japan is incredible.
Okay.
I think when I came to America from Iran,
Mhm.
I schooled you guys in math. Do you no, but wait a
because of
minute.
how
Wait a
well
minute.
Japan is,
No,
these
no,
people aren't
but wait a
coming.
minute. When I came here in 7th grade,
Okay.
I was shell shocked of how pathetic the math was in America
Yes.
at 7th grade. I laughed at Americans.
Mhm.
And so, go look at how many Persians, Iranians, job creators, what they do. Are you kidding me? They're all over the place when it comes down to business. So bring Japanese, bring Indians, the highest paid.
Yes.
Indians in America. Can you pull up, Rob, which immigrants in America make more money than actual whites? This is actually the direction you went.
Being
Wait a
an
minute. Let me just show this
No,
to you.
please. Okay.
So if you can pull this up, Rob, where it shows there's a statistic, income inequality. If you can't find it, Rob, I'll find it. It shows which ethnic immigrants make the most money, and whites are at $65,000. Indians are at $129,000. So do I think America would be better if they attracted more Indians? They kick white people's ass. I mean, if that's the part, and I'm not even
no
Indian.
reason that I believe all these, and what you're talking about is more of the immigration that's coming from the visa programs and not necessarily the southern border.
Well, I'm not for illegal immigration. I'm not sitting
I
here saying
understand.
we do illegal immigration. That's not where I'm coming from. But that
India landed on the moon. I think they can have their own engineers. There's no reason that these people need to come here, especially not in such great numbers that it's transforming American communities.
Yeah, but that part, what you just asked, is
Yes.
when you said, if from 1924 till today,
Yes.
if we, followed guidelines, would America be whiter or this? Numbers, specific data, highest paid immigrants in America. Okay, ethnicity. There is a chart, which we've done an episode on this. Brandon, if you're watching, I found it. Okay, here we go. And da-da-da-da-da. You got to see this because I think this will be
We'll
good
take a
stuff for
look.
you to take a look at. At the top, just something for us. US.
The largest growing demographic group in the
Yeah,
country is
yeah.
coming from south of the border. There isn't a single country of that nationality on this list.
No, you're
Maybe
okay.
at the very bottom.
Okay,
there,
check this
actually.
out. Indian Americans, number one. You're uncomfortable when it says Indian
What
Americans.
percentage of the country right now has Indian?
Hang on, let me kind of go through this here
I
for
was
you.
asking the demographic.
Indian
I
Americans,
understand.
100,000. Filipinos, 83. Taiwanese, Sri Lankan, Japanese, Malaysian, Chinese, Pakistani, whites. White first. They're 8th place. Then
Being
you got
American
the
is not about
average
making
American. No, but this because I know white is important too. So white Americans are there.
The cultural
Then-
experience of
No,
being American.
but you said you asked me a question,
I understand.
and your question was, if we would have followed the guidelines. If I see this right here, you know what I would say? I'd love to get more Indian engineers here. Are you kidding me? We hire a bunch of them. They're brilliant. So whatever, the IIT Institute engineers destroyed the MIT Institute engineers. Their educational system on how there's a video documentary that was done that got engineers graduating from IIT. I don't know how familiar you are with IIT versus MIT.
I'm not.
Okay, then you ought to take a look at this because our educational system is weak. It's not strong. Indians come in here, they make us better. Educational system from Japan, make us better. Middle Easterns come in here with the math from Iran, they make us better. What's wrong with that? I mean, if America wasn't able to use some of those resources, what I'm against is leaving the border open. Guys, come left and right. They just found 6 people who are on the terrorist list that's come in the last 2 years. What was the number, 6 or 14, Rob? Do you remember?
6.
6 that have come the last 2 years on the terrorist list because we've left the border open. No one's for that.
If we could, because I asked you a question about
Yeah.
what the total demographics would look like. When we pulled up that list,
Mhm.
the largest percentage making up groups
Mhm.
from Africa and south of the border, from
Mhm.
Latin American countries, was at the bottom. And again, I'm not saying those are bad people, but I'm saying we need to question why our immigration policy allows mostly those types of people.
That's a fair
And
question. That's not a
we shouldn't be afraid to point out that these various groups are coming from different places that are different.
But this destroys your argument.
What
with-
percentage
yeah.
of the present day United States population
Yeah.
is from India or the Philippines? That would be a very excellent question. Because if you subtract that,
But let me ask. Okay, so let's
then
just say.
what does the demographics look like?
But no. Then do you not want more Indians and Filipinos who send their best people?
I think India and the Philippines
Yeah.
are perfectly functioning countries.
Uh-huh.
And they need all of their engineers.
Yeah.
Because to me, being an American isn't about making money.
Yeah.
Being an American is about a unique experience.
Yeah.
If the Philippines, or if India was going to be 52% European,
Mhm.
I would think that was just as bad as if America was going to be 52% of all of these groups you list here. And it's not only that, but it's that the groups that are composing the largest growing demographic percentage, you will see are actually a net negative in terms of taxes.
You know when you got triggered?
Let me just squeeze in here. It's not finished. I want to finish the entire point here, but believe it or not, there are some points that Mr. Russo, the young man, he was saying that I actually agree with, and some of what PBD was saying that I have some reservations. For example, when PBD was saying that wouldn't it be beneficial to bring more Indians that are great engineers into the country, and you know, my pushback on that point is that it is great for America. It is not good for India to lose all of their engineers, and it's also only great for America if they bring in more engineers from India to supply the deficit. But like here in Canada, you know, the trajectory of immigration from India is redefining what Canada is, what Canadians, the parliament, the the population. It is going to be the majority population of Canada will be of Indian ethnicity with the rate of immigration that we are having in Canada today. And it will replace the whites. It will replace the more native. We have to state the fact that the majority native ethnicity of America and Canada and Western societies are Caucasians. And being a Caucasian is like the culture, the Western culture is skin dip. It's not just being white, but being white, being Caucasian, being of European descent is intertwined with Western culture. So if you replace that ethnicity, which are the founding ethnic groups of countries such as Canada and the United States and many European countries, I think we can say, you know, white, predominantly white countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, which are built by immigrants, European immigrants, right? Europe is predominantly white already from the very beginning, but Europe itself is being replaced by non-whites. Then my my pushback with what PBD was saying here, that shouldn't we be welcoming everybody from India because they're great engineers? I would say yes to a certain point, to fill the deficit of, because during the Second World War, or the end of the Second World War, Operation Paperclip, there are the CIA and many of the American oligarchs thought that it was a great idea to paperclip some of these Nazi collaborators and even Nazi criminals because they're talented. German descent that could pass for being Americans. Werner von Braun and many of these Nazis who have taken, you know, great positions in NASA and Disney and many core industries of America, or have many Nazis been installed into those places. I don't think that's right. And in the same breath as what PBD was saying, shouldn't we be welcoming great engineers from India? Yes, to a certain degree, but not to replace your core engineers, or not to take away the jobs for American citizens who have I'm not saying just not to replace the whites, but I'm talking about the Americans as defined by PBD, not the Americans as defined by Mr. Russo, the young man in this panel here. Let me just rewind so that those who are, this is Mr. Russo, the founder of White Nationalist America First. So I can't remember what I was about to say. Some of my pushback to what PBD is saying, and some of I slightly agree with what Mr. Russo is saying. Let me play because I forgot what he was saying that I have a certain degree of agreement with.
Make us better. Middle Easterns come in here with the math from Iran. They make us better. What's wrong with that? I mean, if America wasn't able to use some of those resources, what I'm against is leaving the border open. Guys, come left and right. They just found 6 people who are on the terrorist list that's come in the last 2. What was the number, 6 or 14, Rob? Do you remember?
6.
6 that have come the last 2 years on the terrorist list because we've left the border open. No one's for that.
If we could, because I asked you a question about what the total demographics would look like. When we pulled up that list, the largest percentage making up groups from Africa and south of the border, from Latin American countries, was at the bottom. And again, I'm not saying those are bad people, but I'm saying we need to question why our immigration policy allows mostly those types of people.
That's a fair question.
And we shouldn't be afraid to point out that these various groups are coming from different places that are different.
But this destroys your argument.
What percentage of the present day United States population is from India or the Philippines? That would be a very excellent question. Because if you subtract that,
but let me ask. Okay, so let's
then
just say,
what does the demographics look like?
But no. Then if do you not want more Indians and Filipinos who send their best people?
I think India and the Philippines are perfectly functioning countries, and they need all of their engineers. Because to me, being an American isn't about making money. Being an American is about a unique experience. If the Philippines or if India was going to be 52% European, I would think that was just as bad as if America was going to be 52% of all of these groups you list here.
All right. So I remember what. Okay, I remember exactly now what I think slightly or partly agree with Mr. Russo, this young man that you see on the screen right now, what he was saying that I partly agree. Because the truth is, he's right about if the Indians and the Philippines and India is 50% European by immigration, that wouldn't sit well with the native Filipinos who live in the Philippines and the native Indians who live in India. That is an impractical assumption because the second largest are probably now taken over the largest demographics on Earth. Are the top 1 and 2 are Chinese and Indians, right? I think the Chinese are 1.5 billion people and the Indians are maybe 1.2, 1.3 the last time I checked. But because of the birth rate in India is so high, I think India probably higher than the Chinese birth rate. I think at this point maybe that the Indians are a bigger population than the Chinese. So that is an impractical presupposition. But with the Philippines is 100 million people. It is possible to flood the Philippines with 50%, more than 50% of the population to be non-Filipinos. It's possible. But let me tell you, when I talk about, I slightly agree with Mr. Russo. This is the point that I agree with what he's saying, because the last time I visited the Philippines, this is more than 10 years back. I haven't visited the Philippines for a long time, but the last time I was there, and I grew up there until my early 20s, I know for a fact that like country clubs and gated communities, the wealthy, are mostly white Americans in the Philippines. So the last time I visited the Philippines was, I think, 2004. And because, I have a little bit of cash that I took with me to spend in the Philippines, I took some of my cousins to a nice, very nice hotel called the Manila Peninsula, which is a Filipino owned. It's not a chain hotel, but it's a 5-star Filipino owned hotel. And I took my cousins and my younger brother to the hotel lobby, the hotel restaurant for a nice dinner. And I look around, 90% of the diners at the restaurant are white people. The servants are the Filipinos. This is in the Philippines. The servers and the greeters and the bus boys, they're all Filipinos. But the guests are 90% white. We're like a minority in the Philippines. Me and my cousins and my younger brother, we were a minority in that Manila Peninsula restaurant, a 5-star hotel in the Philippines. And so I would say that in a way, Mr. Russo is making a good point that it would not be good for the Philippines to be predominantly dominated by non-ethnic Filipino. And so this is the point I'm going to make about that. It's the war is not against Filipinos being dominated by whites, and the whites are not the enemies. In Canada, in the United States, immigrants that bring their wealth, like I remember 93, we have my parents, if they want to settle in Canada, they have to sell a lot of their properties and show the Immigration Canada ministry that they will be able to sustain our needs for a few years and sell all of our properties. Actually, there's a deadline when you want to and that's why my parents went back to the Philippines, because there's a deadline that you need to sell all of your possessions in the Philippines if you are going to be a Canadian immigrant. Sell all of your possession and settle in Canada and pay your taxes in Canada, which is understandable. But many of the immigrants pay their life savings to come to Canada, to come to America, and help build America, help build Canada. You know, I cannot speak for other immigrants, but for many Filipinos I know, they have served as nannies, as caregivers to little children, and many of these little children here in white neighborhood where we live in, a lot of these little children grew up with all kinds of Christian values and family values, because they would tell me themselves, the children will tell me themselves, that because of their nannies, their Filipino nannies, they'll learn how to respect their elders. They learn how to love their siblings and be polite and be respectful. And many of them have felt love because of their Filipino nannies. I'm not saying that to compare, and the truth is, because of Western society being, sometimes the culture has been brainwashed to become more extreme towards individualism. You know, parenthood, many white parents in my neighborhood, I'm not going to talk for all of Canada, but in my neighborhood, many young parents, many young moms and dads are missing out on the joy of parenthood because they see parenthood as an inconvenience, or it ties them up. So they sign their kids on all kinds of post school co-curricular, extracurricular activities on martial arts and swimming and horseback riding, because they just want to emancipate them as early as possible. But they're missing out on the joy of parenthood, the joys of parenthood. And many of these children, white children in my neighborhood, adult children that used to be raised up by Filipino nannies, they were telling me that if not for their Filipino nannies, they probably wouldn't have felt that kind of warm family feel. And so I'm pointing that out not to elevate the Filipinos. I'm pointing that out that immigrants do bring in a lot of value to help build this country, and same as the United States. So it's not the immigrants that are the enemy. It is the globalist agenda. The globalist agenda is to destroy core values, core family values, core culture, and mix everybody up so that we don't have an affinity on a certain nationalistic patriotic value. Instead, they want to replace our affinity to our cultural heritage affinity and replace it with their globalist technocratic god. They even our religious beliefs, they want to replace that with their technocratic god. That's what's happening here. So the enemies of mass migration, even illegal migration, not necessarily the migrants, except what's happening with the illegal migration south of the border, where a vast majority of them are military aged men, and six of them have already been caught crossing the border, which are known terrorists. They are on the watch on a terrorist watch list, was able to cross on the southern border of the United States because Biden has opened up the border. We are not for that. But those who have went through the process of migration, selling their properties from their homeland, and also, bringing all of their wealth with them to come to America and to come to Canada and build this country. We cannot say, they're not white, so they are not Canadians, or they're not white, they're not Americans. Mr. Russo is going to the other extreme, which is, I think, his reaction to the Hegelian dialectic. Again, Hegelian dialectic: problem, reaction, solution. The problem was created by the globalists. All of this illegal migration, mass migration, opening borders, these are created by the globalists, by the technocrats, by the oligarchs, by the tech, by the technocrats wants the end game of borderless nations so that they can god over the nations with no borders. And they created the problem. And what is the reaction? The reaction is, they're erasing many white young Americans. They feel the pain, understandably so, because the globalists who created this mass migration problem also brought in the racial discrimination against whites. And so that was a problem. Problem, reaction, solution. This is the Hegelian dialectic, a proven formula to deteriorate the status quo so that an oligarch or a technocrat can come in and sweep the loot of, deteriorating and established, breaking something which is not broken, so that they can rebuild it according to what they want, according to their design. So that's where the build back better came from, the build back better idea. I remember a director from my office, he said, how do you, and I totally don't agree with what he was saying, but a lot of my fellow consultants, when I used to work at Bay Street, one of our, superstar director, in one of the symposiums, he said these words. He said, how do you make something good even better? And, he threw this question out in the audience, and nobody responded to his question. And then he answered his own question. He said, the way you can make something good better is you break that and rebuild it. And this is the mentality of the oligarchs and the technocrats. Build something that is not broken, or break something that is not broken, so that you can rebuild it according to what you want, according to their desires, the technocratic globalist desires. So the enemy are the globalists. The enemy are the Malthusians, the technocrats, the globalists, the deep populists. They want to depopulate the earth. The enemy is not the brothers and sisters from another ethnic group who contributes to the nation state of America, the nation state of Canada. They're not the enemies. We're not enemies with. Having said that, there are actual enemies of certain religious and ethnic group who by fundamental core beliefs, hates America. Their core beliefs, their religious belief is they are the kinds of people who chants death to America. Well, that's different. Those are actual enemies that we seem to embrace, seem to open our borders and welcome them in. As a Filipino migrant to Canada, I do not like illegal migration myself, and many that I know who went through the process of being qualified to be legal migrants to Canada, we many of them that I know hate the idea of flooding the market with new Filipino migrants who did not qualify the way we had to go through the same qualification, and because of the new liberal Trudeau type migration dogma, they don't even need to assimilate to the Canadian culture. And the likes of the liberal government do not even want to define or enhance or help the definition of what is it like to be Canadian? What are the core values of Canadians? Because they dilute Canadian culture and identity with the mass migration again, so that the globalists, the internationalists can come in and say, hey, you know what? We are your new gods. We are your new government. Technocracy will be the new government. It's a build back better ideology. So, but for the legal migration process that has been happening for decades, the migrants, the legal migrants, are not our enemies. They're not. But we have to put a limit. We cannot just flood our population and replace the core culture of what is Canada, what is America, the way we found it. I don't think migrants should come here and think, okay, I want to come to Canada to redefine Canada according to my ethnicity. But the honest truth is that as much as I embrace legal migrants from all backgrounds, but the truth is many Indian migrants and Chinese migrants have the attitude, and also migrants from Islamic nations have the attitude of coming to Canada to redefine Canada according to their Sharia law. There are many Indians, just to be factual, they want to come here and make it a Khalistani province. This is not what Canadian immigration is all about. Canadian immigration is embracing the Canadian dream, the American dream, and not replacing it with your own foreign dream. I do not agree with that, but I do not agree with Mr. Russo as well, of going to the other extreme and saying, if you're not white, then you're not American. That is just absurd. But I'm going to finish my little commentaries by playing the rest of the episode here. And again, this is just touching a little bit on this episode. I just want to weigh in a little bit. This is not the thorough, in-depth, and again, it's not scripted. This is just a real an impulse reaction with what I saw here in this episode. And after the live cast is over, I'm going to review this, and probably I'll be correcting myself in some of the things I say, just out of off the cuff comments that I some of the comments that I said here in this episode. But we'll see. Maybe I'll keep the whole thing, or maybe I will rephrase or correct myself in the next episode. But let's finish the rest of the clip here, and I'll say goodbye for now because there's so much work to do other than this morning's episode. And I'll see you tomorrow for part 2 of Dr. William Bay's episode that was taken down from YouTube. So let's play the rest of this episode.
And it's not only that, but it's that the groups that are composing the largest growing demographic percentage, you will see, are actually a net negative in terms of taxes.
You know when you got triggered?
What's that?
Do you know when you got triggered? You're going to go back and watch this because your guy's recording it, right? Graham is
Sure.
recording it. You know when you got triggered?
I believe I am having a civil discussion.
Oh, no. By the way, let me tell you,
Yeah.
you're way more respectful than I thought you were going to be. And I'm actually enjoying the conversation.
Thank you.
So I'm not, if somebody asked me and said how you were, I'm not going to say he's an asshole. No.
Good.
Am I going to say he is, whatever the question? That's not the feeling I got. But I will say, the moment I said white first, your body energy changed. All of it.
Because I believe it's a mischaracterization of my view of the nation.
Then that's okay. Let the audience decide on what that is. But to me, I don't have any problem with people who have your position. Others can disagree with it and be like, okay, great. Yeah, he doesn't think a black person should be a president. No problem. He doesn't think a Middle Eastern should be
I
president.
think Americans are white, and white people should be president in America.
That's why I think you're white first.
And other countries can make those decisions. for
You're
themselves.
right, but that's your position. Just stick to it. That's my position. You can say, I believe I'm white first, not America first. Those are two different distinctions.
But Americans are white.
Yeah,
And not
I
all
know.
white people are American.
And you would never want a black American who's born here to be the president, and you would never want a Middle Eastern person who's born here to be president.
Being born here doesn't make you American.
Oh, okay. So then you change what the founding fathers who wrote it. Then you can say they were fools.
Their immigration policy in first
Okay,
naturalization.
finally we're getting into the bottom of it. That Rob, these founding fathers made a lot of mistakes with this.
No. I believe
Constitution.
their
It's
immigration
not a
act was proper.
Yeah,
It was
got
good.
it. Well,
The
they just didn't know who
the
was going to
error-
make more babies over the next
error-
200 years.
Making more babies doesn't mean you get to have my country.
Yeah, but your country, the way it created a constitution, allowed for the people to come here because of the guidelines
The
that they had.
Constitution didn't outline immigration policy because that is under the realm of the legislative branch of government.
Right.
The issue began with the Immigration Act in 1965
But the founders created the structure in a way that allowed the legislative or Congress
to
or
make
Senate.
laws. Yes,
Yes.
that's fine.
That's on them then. Then that's the point where they create
Founders messed up by making a
based on
legislative
your
branch.
position, not mine, based on what you think. I think what the founders built is ridiculous. I think what the paper,
Okay.
what they built is absolutely insane. And I am super grateful for the way they built it. This is why I believe I'm America first. I would have no problem with somebody who is, I'm not born here, right? So guess what? According to our Constitution, I can't run for office. I respect that.
Yes.
Totally get it.
Okay.
Makes sense to me because I wasn't born here according to the laws that they have. I get why they would do that because if somebody all of a sudden from the outside comes in and they want to take over and destroy this great nation, they would. That was the right way they
This
thought.
country was built with a context of naturalization that I believe.
Right.
You can point.
White first.
Sure.
Yeah. right.
Absolutely.
Then you
And,
find
and every single European
Yeah.
nation has practiced this policy for thousands of years.
now we're talking and this ends the
My
conversation.
opinions have been the same.
Now, I know they have been the same.
Yes.
This is just more messaging for you because it's confusing some of the people on the America First side because they're putting you as America First. So whatever the journalists are writing, they should change the verbiage instead of America First because it's more white first. That's all I'm saying.
They
If-
should understand what I believe America
I think they will.
is.
But, and by the way, I think, believe it or not, I think you've done a phenomenal job presenting your position of where you're at. Kudos to you. It's very obvious where you're at. And the audience now doesn't have any, questions to say, okay, maybe he's not fed. He's white first. Maybe he's not this, but maybe
If they
he's not.
don't have questions, or if they do, they know where to find me.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, fantastic. Well, Thomas, appreciate you for coming out. What I do respect more than anything else is an individual that's willing to come and answer the questions and is respectful about it. And you've been like that from the beginning to the
Thank
end.
you.
And I value that a lot. It's one of
Likewise.
those things we value a lot in our family. And I don't care whether you're white, black, Asian, or any of that stuff. I enjoy the conversation.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Anytime. Take
It's
care.
been a pleasure.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So there you go, folks. There's so many things that PBD said that I agree with. And I think there are some that he didn't go far enough. And there are some of the things that Mr. Thomas Russo said that I slightly agree with, but he got it wrong from a certain angle. I just ran out of time. I'm so thirsty. I need to get some water. So we're going to say goodbye for now. But the last thing I would say is him defining America as white, that respects the ideology of a tribal nation slightly, because there's no such thing as a tribe of American tribe. You would say, he was saying that Americans are white. Not all whites are Americans, but all Americans should be white. There's not an American nation according to his definition. His definition of an ethnic white as Americans, then if you define it that way, then there's no American nation according to his ethnic definition. There's only a European nation. Because if it's based on the ethnicity and the culture and the color of the skin, then it's not American. Because the American definition of the founding fathers, I agree with what PBD was saying, that irregardless of your religion, you can be an American. It's the American dream. It's the American ideology that makes it an American nation. And just to close, like I said, in many episodes from 2 years ago, I said that I do not agree that monarchy is the best form of sovereign nations. I do not agree that nation states, based on constitution and the creation of a nation based on a nation state is the best form. It is acceptable, nation states, and Jay Dyer was pointing out that he believes that the superior form of government and social construct is the monarchy. I do not agree with that. I agree that the most organic and the most godly way of how nations were created are tribal nations. That is just the truth. Tribal nations, like the tribe of Israel, and many tribal nations in Africa, which the modern Western societies came and abolished many of these tribal nations. Tribal nations in the Native Americans, the Inuits and the Mohawks, and those are the authentic nations. They didn't call like the Native Indians, the Native Americans. They didn't call Canada as Canada. They didn't call America as America. They call it, the Mohawks or the Iroquois or the different kinds of Indian nations. Those are tribal nations. Africa are tribal nations. Israel originally is a tribal nation. When the United Nations and the social engineers came in and created a nation state with constitution, that is not the tribal nation anymore. So you can be white or black or even Chinese or even Japanese and apply for to be an immigrant in the nation state of Israel, and then now all of a sudden you're a Jew. And there are people who are converting to Judaism, but Judaism is not a religion. It's a way of life. It's a culture. So there are many organic natural organic concepts that God created that we replace with artificial concepts. But I don't have time to go in depth on that one for today. But for now, thank you for tuning in and listening in. I'm inviting you. Let's make it Monday next week. Let's go in depth and have a conversation with this. I'll probably pre-record it so that our listeners for the 8:30 a.m. usual show will be able to make it. But for now, thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. You've been listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio, Coast to Coast, America, Canada, and the rest of the world. God bless you all. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa!
Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
For the best price in town on your flooring, call Complete Flooring. The unique shop-at-home experience means samples are brought right to your door, and because we don't pay salesmen, there's no markup on our products. Complete Flooring does the installation of new hardwood floors and sands them using a dustless machine, making the sanding process cleaner. We also specialize in refinishing, staining, and custom staining of existing hardwood floors. Our Green Guard certified environmentally friendly finish is now available. Drying in a quarter of the time of regular stains means you can get back in your house sooner, and it will last longer. If you're a homeowner, general contractor, or a building or property manager, Complete Flooring services are available to you. So give us a call today.
Imagine that the power grid was totally wiped by an EMP weapon of an enemy state. Your stress level will go to the roof, your patience will be tried, you will have to think about both your own and your complaining children's survival. If you don't survive, your children won't when they are left on their own. Teach your children how to have the mentality of being survivors through a fun, children-friendly guided outdoor adventures with basic survivor mindfulness integrated in the fun outing activity. Call my friends Ernell and Victoria who are experienced survivors. Call them at 905-252-8009 or email them at northernpacificcottages@gmail.com.